Hello there. So Simone Biles has opted to not continue in the women's gymnastics team final at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics for Team USA that happened yesterday on Tuesday. And she dropped out after only completing one of the four rotations with her team. And just today is actually announced that she is not going to compete in the all-around final that's supposed to happen tomorrow, Thursday. And so we're going to get into what exactly happened, what she has said, what is her explanation of this, her team's reactions, and then we'll get into the two really big spins on this story, one in favor of Simone and one against Simone and her decision. And then at the end, I'll get into where I stand on the issue and kind of my thoughts on the reactions from people and what I think of how Simone handled the situation. But before we get into what happened and all the reactions, my reaction, if you are new here, my name is Nick Zangl, and I am broadcasting this live news chat from California, USA. Oh my God, there's a bug right on my thing right there. Okay, sorry. And if you are here live, make sure to leave your thoughts in the live chat where I will read them aloud and show them on screen at some point, probably later on in the video because I want to get through a lot of the information first, but I will check the chat frequently to make sure everyone's good. And if you are listening or watching the replay, wherever it is available, make sure to comment where you can as well. So with that said, let us jump right into this. So Simone has had a less than stellar showing for her standards, as people call her the greatest of all time, the GOAT, and something that she has actually embraced that title, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But especially in the training once they got to Tokyo and the few days leading up to these events, and in the team qualifications, which happened earlier this week before the team event. And although at this moment she is going to compete on the apparatus finals, which she made each of the four apparatus finals, which will be happening next week, we'll see that it's still kind of up in the air if she's actually going to compete in those. But during the team final on Tuesday, after her vault in the first of four rotations, she didn't complete as many rotations as she was planning in the air, and she also landed kind of funny as a result. And so after that, she went backstage or to the back room, not out where the cameras were, with her coach, and basically left everyone, including her team, on the floor wondering what was happening and prompting them to scramble to get the next person who's actually supposed to go after Simone on the next rotation up there to compete in her place until they knew what was happening. So she ends up coming out to tell the team that she was not going to continue in the event. Now, this was obviously a shock to everyone, including her team, probably including herself, maybe, or maybe not. But because there aren't any fans in the stands at these events, and we are getting basically a very, very clear sound bites from these competitors on the floor, especially in gymnastics where the camera's like right up in their grill the whole time. And Simone stated that she was leaving the team event to her teammates, saying, "You guys out there, go out there and do what you are trained to do. I'm sorry, I love you guys. You're going to be fine. You've trained your whole life for this. It's fine. I've been to an Olympics. I'll be fine. This is your first one, so go out there and kick ass, okay?" And so that was basically what she said, and there's clips online you can look up to confirm that that's exactly what she said. But let's see, Nastia's here. Good to see you. I don't know what that means. Maze. Let me know what that means. All right. So we had, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So we had that soundbite of her saying that to her team. Now, according to Simone's statement that she made this statement after things were going on, she made this decision herself, stating that she wanted to take care of her mental health, and she felt like she didn't trust herself, and she was kind of second guessing things, and in the press conference after said things weren't clicking for her, and that she finally, in that moment, it appears kind of that was her breaking point of her saying that the joy of the sport was going away recently, and she wanted to do the Olympics for herself, but felt she ended up doing it for other people. And I think that we can say is including all the pressure around her and her being the face of the sport and kind of the big draw to the Olympics this year. And the results were that the U.S. women's team ended up getting the silver medal behind the Russian athletes, to which Simone said that the girls get a gold medal in her heart after going out there and showing what they are made of and for not giving up. So today, Wednesday, she announced that she, like I said before, she is pulling out of the all-around individual event for Thursday, and we will see kind of what happens with the individual apparatuses next week. It's kind of a day-by-day thing. Let's see what everyone is saying before I get into other people's reactions in the media. Nastia says, I think she was nervous, but when she saw how badly she performed by her standards, that's when she pulled herself out. And I think that's a great point, and that is actually something I have written down that I'm going to share with you. Kind of, there might be more to this story than what we're being shared, or what's being shared right now. Okay, Nastia, you said you meant to write the word maybe, but the delete button is next to the enter button. Got it. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything, or if that wasn't like a term for something. I don't know. Yeah, so I'll get into that. I had the similar thought, and I think a lot of people are probably thinking there's more to this story than what we're being led on to believe. But some of those reasonings in today's climate of, especially regarding this team, which we'll get into in a few seconds, regarding the history of the U.S. women's gymnastics teams and what they've been through, and what's been uncovered or exposed over the past few years, probably are afraid to say some of the things they're actually thinking. I'm not afraid to, so I'm going to say them, but out of fear of maybe getting attacked or being said that you're being insensitive or you're blaming or whatever. But it's not necessarily a fact. If you say it, you can say you have suspicions that I'm thinking X, Y, and Z are happening. I don't know for sure, but of course it's on Simone, and she's the only one that's in her head right now that knows what's going on. So we'll see if more comes out. But anyways, let's keep going. I have some of those thoughts written down. But the reactions from people to this news, because obviously this kind of spread like wildfire because she was the biggest draw and as the best Olympian we've ever, or the best women's gymnast we've ever seen. And I think that was undeniable up to this point. I don't think anyone was questioning that. But the reactions, the most extreme at least, and the most harsh reactions have been, I think, along political lines and some are categorizing as woke versus non-woke. Of course, the people who are being put in the woke category are the ones who are praising Simone for this decision. The people who are kind of anti-woke, non-woke, are more on the criticism of Simone for this. But what I mean by this is the reactions from many on social media and mainstream media are hailing her as this quote-unquote hero for removing herself from the situation in the name of making sure she is taking care of her mental health and making sure that she is okay. And they're saying that even though she is still the greatest of all time in their eyes, she is still showing that she is human and that we all have problems and all have bad days and all have things that we have to deal with, which to them makes her even greater. And this is actually her, according to some people, looking out for the best interest of the team, which makes her even more of a role model than she already was and solidifies that in some people's mind. Now, on the other side, we have people saying she is selfish for doing this. She's not a team player. She's a quitter. She's being distracted by her woke victimhood mindset. And she's giving into all the pressure putting onto her, and she's not able to perform. And she bought into the GOAT label by wearing the leotard with a goat on it too soon. And she got too prideful, and that she's a sore loser, and that she's no longer a role model for those people and their children or whatnot. So there's two very big extremes on this. Of course, some of us fall in the middle, which is where I probably mostly stand, which I want to get into a few of my thoughts that I've had in reaction to this news, which is one, I do think mental blocks and mental hurdles are real. And so I'm not going to just completely discount Simone because she is claiming it is a mental health thing. I can think of one very strong example, which is a pitcher who I think his name is John Lester. I'm pretty sure he is a pitcher in baseball in America. And he has this mental block where he cannot throw a baseball if it's hit to him from the pitcher's mound to first base overhand. It's just he literally cannot do it. Like there's just something mental block about him that he just, for whatever reason, he cannot do it. He has to throw it underhand and he has to run it to get as close as possible. It's probably some mental block and fear of something bad happening that maybe has happened before, and it just for whatever reason traumatized him, or this focus on perfection and not wanting to throw the ball away or something like that. But that's one example I thought of as far as mental blocks go that can be really debilitating for an athlete and just for things in general. Really, you think of writer's block for authors, just these things that you can't really explain. It's just happens, you know? So that was one thing I really thought of when I was kind of seeing this happen, because clearly it's not like her to give up or to quit or to do any of these things. But along those same lines of the woke victimhood mindset that people are trying to blame this on. Hold on one second. I want to check really quick my audio. Okay, cool. I'm not so sure we can blame kind of the woke victimhood mindset that people are trying to put this on, even though Simone has said things that would be considered woke or in that realm, because up to this point it hasn't really been affecting her. This is not normal for Simone, and only up until recently she has expressed some of the mental challenges that she's had, especially in the packages that they've been showing on NBC in their coverage of this, where Simone is sharing how she does feel older this time. It's been 5 years since she's been at the Olympics. She does feel more tired at times. She isn't as trustful with herself as she was before regarding her skills and doing them a little more effortlessly. She does kind of have these things in the back of her mind of, what if this happens, or what if this goes wrong, and maybe I'm not as strong or as good as I once was. And so I also see how if she is mentally not there, she does not want to hurt the team or get hurt herself, which in turn would hurt the team. But in my head, not in Simone's head, I rationalize it in, what world is Simone a burden on a team from a scoring and from a skills and from a delivery perspective? And so maybe that is throwing her off too, meaning like she knows she's been reliable all this time and all these people have been able to rely on her, and now she's seen things kind of not be as good as they once were, and that could be freaking her out as well. And it could be she was very thrown off in recent days just from her less than stellar training, and maybe some things happened leading up to from the Olympic trials till they got to Tokyo. After this long time dominance, I think they said she hasn't lost a competition in like 8 years or something like that. It's like something wild. Like she's clearly very good for a long time, and maybe this is the end of that. I don't know. But if that is the case, then I think everyone who has been putting her on this pedestal may need to look in the mirror, taking some responsibility for all of this as well, and all the pressure that Simone is feeling, including Simone for letting herself also kind of buy into this and maybe self-proclaiming herself as the greatest of all time, the GOAT, a little too soon. And maybe this was just the point where everything just kind of hit her at once. I don't know. But in this case as well, Simone appears to also be holding others to a higher standard, in my opinion, than herself, because the other girls on the team were having off days too recently. They didn't have perfect training runs, but they didn't quit. But granted, they also didn't have as many eyeballs on them, and the pressure of being a returning Olympian and having the streak that Simone does, and all the people holding her up on this pedestal, they didn't have that same pressure. But this is different than what we are used to, which is Simone being her own harshest critic, which we've heard the commentators say. We've seen it very clearly on her face in recent years, which usually leads her to being greater and pushing herself to work even harder and being a perfectionist and doing even crazier and harder skills and to work even harder. But unfortunately, this one's at the Olympics during the team finals. So maybe she thought, I mean, I can't train anymore. I have to just finish this out or not. So that could be part of it as well. And I think, in my opinion, Simone was on the brink of being this untouchable person, like in the untouchable, solidified as the GOAT on another level territory, even with those days recently where she wasn't up to her normal standard. And I think it's still possible for her to reach that level if she does end up competing on the apparatus events finals next week. But maybe she won't compete on those, and maybe she comes back in the Olympics. I don't know. Maybe she takes a little bit of a break and just deals with something she needs to deal with, and comes back in maybe 2 years. And I don't know. You never know. There is an Olympian that I think it was in. She's from, I forget where she was, but she's done like 8 Olympics or something. So it's possible. But when it came down to, unfortunately, when it came down to being a part of the team, this time she could not finish the job. And I think it's unfortunate for everybody involved. And we touched on this a few minutes ago, but in the, actually, let's see. Nastia is commenting. I want to see what you have to say. Because I think that was a good place for me to pause. Nastia says, I feel it's bad sportsmanship. If she was mentally off, the time to refuse was before getting on the plane to Tokyo. Think about the damage to the morale of the rest of the team. How must they feel? I hear you. I'm going to touch on a few of those thoughts in a few seconds. Nastia continues saying, I think people would understand if she didn't win. Everyone is human. It would have been a learning and growth moment. Plus, everyone loves a comeback story. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, and I have thought about this too, if she had that first vault performance and came back and did the other three rotations with her team, and they all finished it out, maybe she did better on the other 3 events and kind of pulled herself together and said, okay, you know what, brush it off. Let's do better next few rotations, Simone. And her team gather around her and lift her up, even though she was the leader of the team, and kind of reverse those rules. It could have been a very powerful moment, even if they end up not getting the gold and still getting silver or bronze. It could have been used to fuel her even more to want to come back again for the Olympics. And I do think it was kind of blindsiding to her teammates. They looked kind of shocked when she came out and was telling them that she wasn't going to continue. And I think, from what I saw in that clip, they were all saying, are you okay? Like, is everything good? Because they thought maybe she got hurt or something. Maybe they didn't know what was really happening. And she tried to make it sound like, try to reaffirm them that she's going to be okay. Like, I'm good. Like I said, like she said, I've been doing Olympics before. I'll be good. But in that moment, she was just probably trying to just save herself, because she probably felt mentally like she was going to crumble or whatnot. Just trying to survive at that point. But I do think it was, by a lot of people, was considered bad sportsmanship, or seemed like she was abandoning her team. But I think there's still a chance for a comeback. I mean, she's only 24. Maybe for her, she thinks she's old for the sport. I don't know. She did say she has been feeling a little more out of breath, or not as, doesn't feel as youthful as she was 5 years ago, but we'll see. Anyways, let's continue on and we'll get to your thoughts. Oh, hello, UC Boss. How are you? I am doing well. Good to see you here again. I know people have been wanting more variety, and back to my old variety of content, not just the housewife stuff. So thank you for being here. I'm doing well. Hopefully you are doing well as well. So it's been a busy week, and I'm happy to be back with you guys. So in the back of my mind, I also think maybe she knew, and we talked about this earlier, but I wanted to say it again, that they were going to lose, or that she wasn't going to do well, and didn't want to be considered a loser, or lower than she once was, and hold a silver medal, or at least bring some attention away from the loss and not have to deal with that, and kind of get everyone on her side through a mental health thing. That always is in the back of my mind. I hope Simone didn't try to take the easy way out. I don't know. But I wonder also if circumstances such as not having a crowd there, not having any family in the audience, and this not being a normal Olympic event, or a normal Olympic I guess, trial or lead up to the Olympics, if you will. It was delayed by a year, and then it's a different atmosphere than what she was used to because she had Olympics before. The other girls didn't really know, so they're just kind of playing it as their first Olympics. But as far as her comments to her teammates, I don't agree with what people were saying as far as this being, was this her being completely selfless, because she did make it about her in some way by justifying on the floor to the girls as she was telling her team, which we appeared to get more details on in the press conference afterwards, but that she's fine, she's been to Olympics before, and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of see both sides on the was she a team player or not kind of thing, because in a team, everyone has to do their individual job. And as much as people like to say you're supposed to put the team over yourself, and I think that in some ways is true, I think there's also a balance of everyone doing their part in the team to create or to accomplish a common goal. So I kind of see both sides on the argument of whether this was her being a team player or not. So I don't know. Maybe she could have gone about it a little different. I don't know, but I'll touch on that in a few seconds. But I'm also leaving room again for more information on this story to come out, because we don't know for sure what's really going on, and there could be something else to this that we don't really know about that maybe come out in a few minutes, and I touched on that in the beginning as well. But I will say, in the team qualifying where they all went and the alternates went, the alternates were really, really solid. So maybe Team USA and Simone should have agreed to have her compete maybe only in the individual events instead of, if possible, instead of the team, the all-around and the apparatus finals, if possible. But then again, it appears she was fine until they got to Tokyo. And so maybe during the Olympic trials, we can look back and say, oh yeah, she was kind of off her game, or something was up, or maybe she wasn't as good as we think. We kind of just brushed it off. Maybe we should have looked more into that, but we don't know for sure. And to her credit, it would be disappointing a lot of people if she had dropped out prior to the Olympics even starting, or sharing this news at the trials when they announced the team. So I think it was just going to be a tough position for her and everyone in the sport and the Olympics in general and NBC, no matter what happened. Whether she didn't perform as well, whether she drops out midway through an event, or she drops out prior to the event, or she doesn't go to the trials, or she announces something sooner. So that's a lot of pressure. So I feel for her and her teammates, because of course Simone should take care of herself, and I'm not going to deny that she shouldn't take care of herself. But unfortunately, in this case, that came at the abandonment of her teammates during the team event. And I think no matter what she was doing, it was going to disappoint someone. So also, I think it's important to not shut this down, or shut this call for a mental health break down, although it is poor timing on her part, because especially the USA Gymnastics coming off of a monumental scandal with their former team doctor, and I think sports in general moving towards a mental health component being in the forefront of their mind. I think about the mental damage and the brain damage to football players out of contact sports and just mental health in general, and how that scandal in gymnastics, as far as the team doctor goes, the raising questions about who knew what and when, and if concerns had been raised and were ignored by athletes. So that whole situation and trying to correct those issues that happened in the past could also be contributing to this quick action in support of Simone as well. So I think there's all these things that can be true at once, because I know some people are picking sides, like I agree with what Simone did or I don't. And she's the villain or she's the hero, or she's a team player or she's not. She's selfish or she's not. She's a role model or she's not. I think we can say this was poor timing on Simone's part, even though she may not have had control over when her breaking point was. We can also say good for her for taking steps to protect herself. And we can also feel bad for her teammates and say maybe this wasn't the best situation and wasn't handled the best. I think all these things can be true at once, but unfortunately in today's climate of very polarizing in political things, it's hard for, I think, the people who are used to polarizing and doing all the things and politicizing everything to not take a step back like you and I are doing right now and try to dissect this and say, okay, these are the parts I agree with, these are the parts I don't agree with, but I kind of understand both, and I think we should all learn from this. And to her credit as well, she did seem to be very relieved after making the decision to not continue in the team event. So it appears that this decision really kind of relieved her of something that she was dealing with, whether it's what she's saying she was dealing with or if there's something else going on. And I think also this is kind of a new, I think we're entering a new age of American greatness. And what I mean by that is kind of a healthier form of what used to be American greatness. And this potentially could be the breaking point and a growing pain associated with that new mindset and everything. And I hope Simone really finds her joy in the sport again, and that this is not how her career ends, because I think we all love seeing her compete at her highest level. It's quite impressive to see. And I'm sad because this was one of the events and one of the stories I was really excited to watch and see unfold. So it's just unfortunate that it's playing out this way. But before I get into, I'm going to give a few final thoughts and observations, then I'll get to your live chat and see what you all are saying. So another observation I saw, which was Simone actually still got to receive the silver medal, even though she sat out of 3 of the 4 rotations. But then again, I was thinking, okay, not every girl on the team was supposed to do every event rotation. And she did do the first rotation on vault, even though it wasn't her best. But no one replaced her that wasn't supposed to be in the team event in general. So, I mean, it made sense after I thought about it. And it also maybe shines a light on if she thought she was going to not get the gold with the team, that she wanted to distract from the fact that maybe they lost. Who knows? Also, I want to shine a light on the rest of the team for not quitting, whether it be Suni Lee, is that her name? Jordan Chiles and gosh, why am I forgetting her name? Jade, is it Jade Carey? I think her name is. Because they didn't give up and they stepped in and filled Simone's shoes and took on the burden that she kind of lifted off her. And I think they're the ones that need to be called heroes for taking on that weight. So, and I want to say I wish them all the best and success in their individual events, in apparatus events, and the individual all around. I think Jade Carey is the one that was the alternate that's going to be in the all around. The other one is something McCallum. Why am I forgetting this? Let me look it up really quick. And while I'm looking this up, make sure to leave whatever your thoughts are in the chat. Grace McCallum, that's who it was. Okay, she was the other of the team. All right, so let's get into your thoughts on this. Nastia says, runners have lost a shoe and still pushed forward to the finish line and won gold. Sha'Carri Richardson's mother died a few days prior to her winning the record-breaking race. I wish she had handled it better. Nastia asked, do you think brand deals were weighing on her as well? She's not just Simone Biles anymore. She's Simone Biles, the brand. That comes with heavy expectations, and embarrassing loss would affect the brand. Okay, let me break this down. So as far as other athletes who have overcome obstacles to finish the race and still win, I also think back gymnastics-wise to Carey Shrug, the one who like hurt her foot and still went out and did a vault or whatever, and she was like carried off with her hurt leg and they still won. That's what I thought of, and I was thinking maybe she would have, I don't know, maybe she, in the moment, she was just so panicked and just her mental state was so bad that she just like was in survival or fight or flight mode. I don't know. Yeah, that's a great point about Sha'Carri Richardson. She used it to fuel her, and I think that's what Simone, maybe she's thinking she could have done, and I don't know if she'll ever admit that or just double down on what her reasoning is now, but we will see. And maybe, I hope Simone comes out and maybe says, you know what, at the time I thought I was doing what was right, and looking back, maybe it wasn't handled the best, but I hope I can move forward and prove something else. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to force anyone to do anything, so she'll have to deal with the consequences of that. But as far as your question, Nastia, about brand deals weighing on her as well, I did see that some of the brands, I think it was Athleta or Athleta, one of her sponsors came out in support of her decision, saying, we support her taking care of her mental health and doing all that kind of stuff. So it could have been the lesser of two evils for her to drop out and cite mental health, which could be a legitimate reason, instead of pushing through the mental health and potentially performing poorly. I don't think, though, I think brands, like you said earlier, I don't think they would drop her for poor performance, because I think, if anything, they can spin anything to make it a positive and make it so their brand is more aware, and so that Simone gets more exposure and has more support. So I think, although Simone seems to think the lesser of two evils was pulling out and citing mental health reasons, I think she polarized and she maybe lost some fans. And although her sponsors may stick with her because of this reason, because maybe they're on the same train of kind of the conversation around mental health and, for lack of a better term, the wokeness train, if you will. I think, unfortunately, that does alienate more people that were on her side before. Especially if you're not someone who follows her on Instagram, which I don't, and wasn't aware of her politics, because, and honestly, I didn't really care about it, because up until this point, it wasn't really affecting her performance in the gym, so I didn't really care. As long as when I'm watching gymnastics, when she's performing, I don't have to hear about the politics. Besides, obviously, the huge scandal that you can't ignore regarding the abuse of them by their team doctor. I didn't care if any of that. But now that it is being brought to the forefront and there are questions about what happened and her motives and the optics of it, I think she lost a lot of people who were willing to look past all those things they disagree with her on, because they can't deny how good she is as an athlete. And so now that one thing that was bringing everyone together around Simone Biles, and what created that brand and attracted all this sponsorship and money towards her and her brand, I think maybe long-term it will be not as beneficial of a partnership with her because of this. And of course, it will be spun by Simone, her team, whoever, in a way that'll say, well, people are blaming the victim and people are continuing the stigma of mental health and talking about it and getting shamed for speaking about your mental health. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. So I've been rambling on. Let me know if you have any other thoughts or questions. Hopefully I've been making sense. And okay, let's see. Someone's coming in here. Let's see. Red Rabbit says Russians were just better, but only by 3 points. And that's the question we also have to grapple with our head. It was, okay, if Simone continued on in the events, we don't know if she would have done better than her vault and maybe got it together, or just completely fallen apart on all 4 events, which would have been, I think, from a sport and from a Simone perspective, would have been maybe even more devastating. We don't know. Who knows if they would have even won then. And so it does bring questions as well as of Simone's confidence, not only in herself, but in her team, if the reason was she dropped out after that bad vault because she thought she was carrying the team and that she couldn't perform to the level that would be needed for the team to win, and she didn't want to face losing or whatnot. And so I don't know. That is a good question. So there's a good chance that we would have lost anyway, because the men's team, the Russian team, beat all. Like, I don't think the U.S. men's even got on the podium. The Russian men won the gold medal for that team. So there's a lot of questions because we didn't get to see the full thing play out. So we're all just kind of assuming things, and we're just trying to take Simone's word for it, and hopefully she gets better and she can find the joy in the sport again, because it is sad to see someone at her level say that in recent weeks or months or days, whatever it was, the joy in the sport that she clearly loves a lot and is so dedicated to was gone, and that she felt like she wasn't doing this for herself anymore. She was doing it for others. So we'll see. But of course, the fact that she wanted to do it for herself affected the team. So Nastia continues to say, I'm surprised she cited the pressure of being called the GOAT was getting to her, because she seemed to embrace it in the unitard with GOAT on it. She seemed to take pride and confidence in it. Yes, and I mentioned that earlier in this live. Maybe you weren't here yet, but I did say maybe she jumped the gun a little bit by embracing that title, and maybe it did give her a little. We don't know, because we were not in the gym with her when she's training, but maybe it did affect her training and her mindset, and kind of not keep her on her A game, or keep up in some ways, because maybe she did think she had peaked already and was kind of on her way down. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. And maybe that she wasn't feeling the pressure until she embraced that, and she couldn't ignore it anymore once she said she was that. And it's kind of no going back once you call yourself the greatest of all time. Let's see. Red Rabbit says, I think she should have finished. You came all this way. I completely agree. Finish it off, good or bad, and end your career at least finishing, or leaving your worst performance during the team event and getting all the bugs out, and then going into the all-around final and the apparatus finals solid and proving to everybody, okay, you are the best in the world. You just had a bad showing during the team event. I don't know. And maybe if she was feeling too much pressure even before Tokyo, like we've talked about earlier, before getting to Tokyo, saying, you know what, I feel there's way too much pressure for me to help the team win the team final. I would like to remove myself from the team because I think I'm going to hurt them more than help them. I would like to compete in the individual events. That way, if I don't perform up to my level, I am not the blame for these other girls not getting a gold medal or whatever it is. That could have been another way to handle it too, but like I said before, we don't know if she had this mental thing happen when they got to Tokyo and they'd already decided on who was doing what. I don't know. Nasty says, but yeah, that's why I think she pulled out only after she did poorly. I genuinely think if she did well, she would still be in the game. 100%. And maybe though her doing poor was like, was a wake-up call that she was kind of in denial about before, was, well, crap, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. What else does this mean? Does this mean I'm just going to completely screw up the entire thing for everyone? I have all these things going on in the back of my mind. I don't know. It seems like that really freaked her out. She said it freaked her out. Things weren't clicking, and it just was probably a different feeling for her than for a long time. She's 7-8 years of winning every competition. I mean, it probably feels a lot different to not be on that level. Red Rabbit says, not like every other team hasn't got their story of getting to the. Not like every other team hasn't got their story of getting to the Olympics. Yeah, and I was thinking about this too, which was, as far as the team aspect goes, even like the U.S. women's soccer team, who I disagree with on a lot of their political, social stances and them kneeling, and some of their teammates not kneeling, but at the end of the day, they are a team, and they end up on the field together and they perform. And even their best players play the whole game, even though they have very strong criticisms of our country, and they're willing to protest by kneeling during the national anthem. They still go out and play on the field and still wear the American flag. So, and I think of, what was the other? I had another example. I was thinking of, Serena Williams. She's had, after having her baby and coming back, she was on her way back to the top of her game and has had very public struggles on the court. I think of Naomi Osaka, who is another tennis player who rose to fame when she was playing Serena, and that whole incident at the US Open in 2018, I believe, where Serena was really really mad about some of the calls by the umpire as far as breaking the rules and whatnot, and her cheating. But she still finished the match, even with all the anger and whatnot, and got it out there and still finished. And Naomi Osaka, who's had mental health challenges, she pulled out of the French Open recently. Was it the French Open or was it Wimbledon? Or both? Before they even started. So she didn't go start playing in the tournament and then drop out at like the finals or the semifinals. She just said, you know what, I need to just take a break now. And so I also think of, let me think of the girls who are now looking at this and saying, well, Simone isn't really competing. And the girls who didn't make the team or the alternates thinking, well, maybe that could have been me. And she took my spot. Or if she would have done blank, blank, and blank, maybe I would be up there. So I think this might also turn some people against Simone in the gymnastics world. And I know that her teammates right now are coming out in support of her, saying we support her decision and whatnot. But I have to think that some of them are a little mad about this. They're not too happy about the way this went down and really are not holding Simone as high up in their world as before, but we'll see. But I'm sure the media won't tell you if her teammates start speaking out against her or ask her apology or whatnot or criticize her, because they want Simone to be this figure that's untouchable. But we will see. Nasia says, I think when she looks back, she'll regret not finishing. She's young and will mature. I wish her well. I wish her well as well. I think this is going to be a good learning experience for everybody, whether it's Simone, her teammates, U.S. Gymnastics and the media and NBC for propping her up maybe too much and putting a little too much pressure on her to the point where she's like almost so good and so praised that there's only down. You can only go down from there. I think as far as us as viewers or as people, as fans or as media who are responding to this, I think there's a lot of lessons for all of us in this situation. But with that said, if no one has any other thoughts, this has been a really good discussion. If you're listening or watching the replay, or if you're here live and you have other thoughts that come up after we wrap up here, head to the main comment section of wherever you're watching, whether you're on YouTube or on Rumble. And if you're listening on a podcasting platform to the replay, make sure to comment where you can. Let's see what else we have to say. Red Rabbit says, there's a lot of girls out there that would have killed to be where she was. Exactly. And that's what I think Simone is going to have to... I think Simone is going to be the one that has to deal with the most of this and really digest what that one decision of hers, what ripple effect it had on the sport and her brand and her life. And that's the decision that she made. And so we'll see what happens with her. But what happened. So now it's only what's she going to do from here on out? How are we all going to respond? So with that said, thank you so much for joining me today. If you would like to see more content from me before the next live, which I already have planned on my main channel on YouTube, where you can go and set the reminder to make sure you can join live and join the live chat, click around the channel and head to the description box for more information and more videos and more content. And in the description box, as well as the about section of the channel, there is information on how to sign up for my free email list if this is your first time here, where I send out the email notifications with links to the live chat of the YouTube live stream when it's new, or the live premiere with live chat, and the links to all the other socials that I have where the replays are available. And it's also another communication form for us, just in case the big tech platforms or any other platform, for whatever reason, we aren't able to communicate through there. So with that said, appreciate you taking the time to hear my thoughts on this and for sharing yours. And we'll see what happens next week with Simone and the team in the next event and tomorrow in the all-around. I hope they do well. I hope the other girls get a chance to shine some more. So I will talk to you in the next one. Until then, make sure you stay well and stay safe and healthy, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.